Welcome to Dark Guidance. My name is John.
I'm Chris. Wait a minute. Think about this. First of all, it's welcome to Dark Guidance. I'm John in this case, but I'm not John. I'm Chris. You're John. Where are we? What are you doing?
I messed it up. All right. Welcome to Arcane Precision. My name is John. And today we have Chris from Dark Guidance, and we're going to be talking about Winter Korps.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad that we were able to make it work despite time difference.
Yeah, this seems like someone's in the upside down. Well, probably you, because it's
We're
about
in
to
the
be
future here. It's a bit of a I guess I'm currently coming for you in what 13, 15 hours ahead. I don't know. Whatever the case is.
14 hours is like morning here and it's nighttime there. It's almost gonna be fall here, autumn, and you guys are getting spring soon, or?
Yep. Yep.
All right, so we started a little off structure, but it's all right. Anyway, we've got here.
You invited me to this podcast. What did you fucking expect?
True. but anyway, we've got the motherland's chosen son, as I like to call you, and Josh calls you Loud Chris and other things that I'm not going to repeat. Active player, that's another nickname you got.
You know the story of how that one
Yeah.
came about, right? It's a bit old at this point, but I've been reminded that was nearly 10 years ago, so I'm feeling.
Oh, oh man. So yeah, give us a little bit of a introduction. Your your origin story.
All right. My name is Chris. I'm a new player, at least theoretically I am. I keep using this line of "I'm a new player, please go easy on me," and it's never worked in at least 15 years at this point. Yeah, I live in Australia. I'm currently the only 3-time WTC champion, and I've done it all with Cardor in whatever flavor. Look, there's like questions of how I even got started in the faction. It's a silly thing. Like I basically was at a demo day and I kind of wanted to play Signar, and someone else said, "Nah, I already bought the Signar box. Buy another color." So I bought the Kador box, and I had a Sorsha and 2 Jacks, and that was it. That's all it took. That was way back in Mark 1. I didn't even play it, and then I came back to it. It's like, oh, people are now playing War Machine. I'm like, oh, I've got this. Just breathe off the like dust of this box that I barely assembled. And I started playing, and yeah, I cut my teeth on Mark 2, and like the first WTC I went to was like at the tail end of Mark 2 in 2014, and it was a long and wild ride, but here we are. So yeah, look, I like to say I seem to play 2 factions, which is Cardor and then factions I pretend I'm going to play while waiting for Cardor releases.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed you had a little bit of a stint with Crucible Guard, I believe.
Yeah, Crucible Guard one time. I was waiting for Doom Reaver stuff, and also Crucible Guard are just rad. Like, I like other armies, I really do. But when it comes to like collecting and playing, it's just like, well, look, if I'm gonna do it, I had so much institutional knowledge. I guess we're stuck with it, right? But it's like,
Yeah,
sometimes it's good to like break it up a bit because you'd want to play something fresh. And it's nice to also then come back and go back to things. So, to no one's surprise, I played a bit of Umbri because Umbri is technically also a Cardor faction, and more importantly, you get to play Hounds, and you get to play Hounds with like armor debuffs, which is fantastic.
right.
But you know what? You don't get in Umbri, and it's kind of cool that you do get in Winter Korps? Bison and just good guns, like really good guns. So yeah.
I noticed that the we'll get a little bit into play style with Winter Korps, but I noticed very vast differences between both armies, which is cool. It's
Yeah,
nice
I
to
mean,
see.
they are truly different armies, and they might as well be treated as such. And that does seem to be the way going forward. And you know what? I don't mind. That's kind of like it'd be kind of boring if you think about it. If let's just say like is you compare Signar and Signar and Cardor, the two armies which have like basically the two factions that have both of their armies fleshed out. And if you think about it, if like Gravediggers was basically Storm Legion but trenches, it would be just kind of
Yeah.
it'd be boring. What's the point of us doing it? I like that they're different, and Umbre are very different from Winter Korps. They're like polar opposites, and that means that you have enough splash over that you can feel cool playing stuff. And given what they've sort of shown with like the Dusk and Orgoth releases, I have no doubt that you're going to start seeing things like Warcasters that enter as mini modules into Winter Korps, and then maybe that goes. You're already seeing that vice versa in Old Umbre, and that'd be like a cool dynamic.
All right. So yeah, speaking of Winter Korps, what do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of the army?
Okay, I am actually going to start with the weakness, and it's kind of like there are two major weaknesses of Winter Korps. One of which is a list design problem, and the other is kind of like an overall army issue. The list design issue is realistically Winter Korps' Jack package is the result right now of nerfs in January this year. But previously, Winter Korps had pretty wide variety, but often it kind of defaulted to Mastodon and Direwolves. And the Direwolves were like there for like points filler, but also they're just really good at 9 points. And like you could have a couple of different builds. And what they did was they nerfed the Direwolf in like a seemingly innocuous way that's kind of ruined a lot of the builds. They made the hammer the cheapest weapon, and honestly the best weapon, more expensive. And that kind of had knock-on effects because the problem with the Direwolf really was like they basically decided they didn't want a 9 point Direwolf, but they didn't really account for the fact that now you have builds like, say, the Direwolf with the hammer, the chain gun, and the shield guard, which was like a staple for the entire faction, is now the same price as a Great Bear with those things. And because of this and nerfs to the Mastodon, it losing superiority axis, um, it kind of meant that your Warjack builds got really weird, and we've seen this play out over the course of the year. If you've looked at most Winter Korps lists, especially ones that are placed highly in tournaments or just really done well, they pretty much revolve around the following three models: Medveditsa, Avalanches, and Razor. Razor's like the fucking wacky weasel. We love it. Razor is an amazing model. If you haven't played Razor, I would really recommend giving it a try. But that's two models that cost 15 points and one model that costs 18 points. And Great Bears still can see use, and often they do see use, but they're almost like the budget heavy somehow, like at 13, and it kind of doesn't really fit. So, okay, you got your issue there with your Warjacks kind of end up being pretty bland. Like, let's be real, like, it's also a question, do you take a Great Bear when you could take Medveditsa, who gives you Pathfinder and Shield Guard just for showing up?
Right.
That's your first kind of issue. It does actually really affect, it's kind of taken a while to really show up, but it affects a lot of the list building, and it's why when you get the second problem, which is more obvious now, Winter Korps really has issues cracking armor if they cannot knock it down, specifically because of this whole want to use avalanches as your main damage heavy. And as a result of models like the Trichimerics and Hellraker, like Winter Korps then has now a problem because bland Jack package, if you can counter it somehow, like again, the Chimerics is the biggest one, but the Hellraker probably will pose some issues eventually. Either way, you start running into problems then, like cracking stuff. All of this really comes down to Winter Korps then finally being. They're a really, really, really flexible faction, but if they play into stuff which counters, like, has just hard nose and hard shutdowns, it gets quite difficult. Now, I've just talked about the weaknesses. The strengths is quite simple. A lot of your shooting is pretty much character level or better, and a lot of your models are just really, really well statted. I think that realistically, Winter Korps would be in a lot worse spot if it weren't for these standouts, and these standout models really do carry their weight. Stuff like the Hounds is an easy one. They are pretty much a mandatory pick in every list because they're one of the best scenario models just to exist. Shock Trooper Gunners, I mean, look, it's a unit of Doom guys, is how I think about it. They're some of the best shooters. Like, they're some of the best spray models in the game. They're also just really fun to use. A lot of these models, in fact, are just fun to use. The melee infantry kind of is a bit bland, but it's maybe getting there. We'll see. So, and even it's like basic line infantry, it's Winter Korps infantry and snipers. Both of them are very good. So you have like a faction where basically your jack package is a little bit kind of sorted for you, and it's a bit annoying, but you sort of live with it. I think there's now like more builds because of Exelon Nastilla. Because you can start looking at just cutting all of the jacks and basically playing one Warjack plus Nastilla, and there's a couple of builds for that, which we'll talk about later. But your infantry and solos are where it's at. I guess one final problem is that back in the day, Winter Korps with Bison had some really good flag contesting solos, not flag contesting solos, scoring solos, and they got rid of that, which means that one of your best power pieces, like Lazarenko, Bison, Winter Korps officers, they lose their scenario power, and that, and also what is this, Kruger, which you have access to as well. So you have to build around these problems, but if you do build around it, it's quite strong.
I wanted to circle back a little bit to the issue with the Warjacks. I've always noticed when I'm making a list that if I want a direwolf, and what I want to put in it makes it as expensive, almost like you mentioned a little bit, as a Great Bear. And when I want to build a Great Bear, it makes it as expensive as a Midovica or
Yes,
the Avalanche.
correct.
So that makes a lot of sense that you're sort of pigeonholed into those three jacks. And,
Yeah,
they're very expensive.
the Great Bear also, its budget build did get nerfed. Well, one of its budget builds, its slam cannon build, because honestly of the Mastodon, because they share weapons. And like, look, range 15 Mastodon cannon is probably not acceptable when that model has aggressive and a 3-inch melee axe, because it can really just get places and shoot you off the shoot your caster in the face. But that did have the roll-on effect of nerfing one of the better Great Bear builds for budget. I also think there's a lot of good builds with the grinder, the chain gun, with 2d3 shots, but I think the problem is that they often suffer when you play it into lists that people are using the counter Cador, which often have negative range. Because
Right.
if they don't, they get so
Yeah. The 10 to a 7 is a little sad when your jack is speed 4.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we all know it's kind of a fake stat, it's speed 4, but also you can't.
It is, yeah.
But what you notice is the way Winter Korps works is that you can slingshot one jack super far, so you might as well make that the character jack, like the cool badass jack, and that's kind of where we land.
And another comment I wanted to make was, do you think that the reason the army is I don't want to call it pillow fisted because we can punch things. It just takes some effort. The reason that happens is because our shooting is good and we're sort of shaving the enemy till we can deal with them a little better, or do you think that balance is a little bit off?
I think it's a couple of reasons. It shows up because the melee infantry in Wrecking Crew and Pikes isn't quite there yet. Pikemen, weirdly, I've a couple of weird feelings about it. So, Yana almost really, really gets them there, but is not quite a list around it that I'm happy with. And it's just night and day compared to Yano in Old Umbre, where even you're like whatever those idiot guys, the Wardens, Liegemen, the guys with the like axe and shield, just crash infantry that turn into werewolves, right? Yeah, we like you should kill for that. Pikemen, they're a bit too premium. They are again, they're almost there, but look, there's no quite feeling of power like rolling the crit armor pierce at some point, especially if it was a CMAT. You will just one shot a lot of things, but it's a bit too RNG, and the Wrecking Crew is too low power to start with, and then a bit too annoying to get to work because you kind of need vengeance to get them going, and then it just never really quite works out. Couple of reasons why, even with the casters that enable them, ultimately, please don't shoot me. Also, the stats are high enough that if you don't shoot them deliberately and directly, you don't trigger vengeance. Like, you cannot blast damage and trigger vengeance, so you're like triggering vengeance off of sprays, but most of the time, if that's happening, it's like a both barrel spray. Like, I remember the first time I remember putting Wrecking Crew on the table, and I think I lost by accident to Quartermaster sprays. I'm like, well, great. This is my melee unit. They even had iron flesh on them. They kind of just died.
Yeah.
That was like Sharknado's feat.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't die, it's like one guy kind of dirtles forward and then maybe kills two people. They're a very different unit compared to suppressors. It's just not actually that fun to use. So, okay, your melee infantry is lacking, so the Jacks have to pick up the slack, but then the Jacks themselves, and the faction is designed around slingshotting Warjack set stuff to break it.
Right.
But we're finally running into things where, by design or by nature, they're not designed to be one-rounded by heavies. And, okay, well, that's kind of why we land at that spot. And yeah, I think it is partly balanced around the fact that you do have a lot of actually quite excellent shooting. And I mean, look, Valeri is still very capable of just kill ordering something a heavy table. It just happens.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, like a lot of the hardest matchups for Winter Korps, I would say, are derpy lists where they are really derpy lists where they are super fast, so they match you on the threat range game, and they're just able to shrug off your heavies. And it's not even like Horusk, although Horusk is like a kind of clean, fair fight that is sort of advantage, but it's Orgoth, it's very melee focused. It's realistically Chimera in general and Vargas.
Gotcha.
And in both cases, it's kind of like, well, you kind of push models, like they have a lot of wet answers to your bull. And also when they put something forward, a lot of times you might be in a spot where I actually can't kill that and I can't really get around it because it's too fast. So what do I do? The end of the world, but yeah, like that should be a noted weakness of your faction, is that you do kind of need to think about how you're going to deal with this garbage.
Right. So I was listening, listening to Musing Panda. I don't know if you've checked that out yet. John Damaris's new venture, and they had a Kador episode, and they talked about how Kador lacks a sort of a front line, like a jamming unit, something to give your opponent a little bit of a let me see, should I go into this sort of a trading piece. And I didn't know if that was an issue or more of a that's just not the play style of Winter Korps. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I disagree, honestly. Well, first, I actually chatted with them. I haven't watched the thing. I probably should, but I really disagree. You have the best jamming unit in the game, the long and short of it.
Oh, okay.
Which is Hounds. And Hounds are in every list. And then your
Hmm.
secondary, if you need it, scenario piece is snipers.
Okay.
And if you unlike a lot of Kador factions, and I think that Winter Korps has a pretty varied stat line of things it can put in your way. Like Shock Trooper gunners on paper are not actually a line. but it's actually incredibly difficult to kill whole units because they just spread out so far.
Mm.
You think about it, it's a unit where you're moving and then you're going to be back. You can pretty comfortably give them Swift Hunter in a lot of situations, and so the models end up spreading very far. And yeah, sure, 12-16 is not really going to set end the world, but also it's a 12-16 with 3 randomly really good immunities. Okay, that's the thing. And then you're also putting on, you've got terrain to consider, which they're pretty good abusers of. That's sort of my take on it.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like people tend to use the hounds as sort of a flanker unit when sometimes they might just be something to jam with. Obviously they do a lot of work, but
Yeah.
something to present a juicy target that is going to be trading on. Your opponent's going to be trading unevenly to, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's really difficult to kill the hounds efficiently, and that's to their credit. And sometimes that means that they're probably the best thing to stick in a zone.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you do sometimes have scenarios where it makes sense to run them as a flank. I find that shock troopers are better for that job, personally.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, if you think about the things that counter gunners, and I do mean shock trooper gunners in this case, gunners specifically are usually countered by negative range effects, but all of those now are very localized. So take wolves at our heels. All right, that scenario, you could have the hounds run run the flag up the table, no problem there. But if you think about it, if those are a unit of gunners instead, no negative range effect is going to be out that direction unless somehow they pivoted the entire way. And okay, if they do that, cool. Gunners still have repo and have enough tricks to get the flag up the table, and they will pretty much kill anything that isn't a serious threat themselves because they're gunners. I do think, however, to give credit where it's due, the melee infantry component that we have a problem with right now is partially that thing that is not holding up their end of the bargain. So, I wouldn't hate it if, say, pikemen were, pikemen back in Mark II were line units, especially in lists I loved, like Urusk 2. Ah, that was my jam.
Yes.
With,
Yep.
Black Dragon pikemen, steady, no knockdown tough because they're Kovniks and they were shield walling up the table and they were armor 22 and there was a control feat behind it so you could block the charges. You don't have anything like that. That's fair. It's you've got one PowerPoint there, which is really strong, and often that's what you use instead. So that's why I don't think it's the biggest deal. Also, Mark IV is a different beast in general. You don't need that kind of unit all of the time.
Yeah, that is true. There's not as much. Things don't just stay in one place for multiple turns, or at least not as much as it used to be. It's sort of like you keep trading things. But yeah, that's cool. Let's move on a little bit and maybe talk about gear a little bit towards the new players. If you are starting out with Kador, where should they go? What purchases should they make? Stuff like that, just to help a new player get their feet wet with the army.
Okay, well, the easiest thing is to buy the SKS cadre, either as a 2-player box you've split with someone, or just in general. I believe it's now available for solo purchase.
Yes,
but it'd be the SKS cadre. It's it's got a lot of really fun high power models, and the caster included is probably at this point the best caster in faction. And you also have the flexibility of being able to dovetail into Umbre as well, and those models are still very relevant in Umbre. So yeah, I would say it's SKS. It'd be the way to go. Apart from that, because they also, one thing to consider is that they've changed around the boxes. I would say it is ultimately Cardor is a Winter Korps, sorry, is a Jack focused faction. So you should just look at the Warjacks and probably the casters that kind of make them. And there are a fair few of those. I would personally, to start with, I would, even though she is the best, I don't actually recommend starting with Vilkul because Vilkul actually requires a bit of knowledge of like the scenario and how a whole bunch of things work to truly shine. And so she might give you a very warped experience of what's going on. Looking at it, because they've actually swapped a lot of this around, I'd actually recommend picking up the auxiliary expansion first because it's got mana war suppressors. Well, it's pretty much got one of all the infantry you'd want, and then go find some warjacks. The battle boxes too. You kind of want two You probably can get away with two dire wolves, two great bears, and grab the variant chassis they have of a great bear for the third one because you're probably not going to have three great bears with unique loadouts.
Right.
And then yeah, just work from there.
Yeah, the main box, I don't know what they're called, but the main one, the one that comes with Valeri,
Yeah.
that one does have Midovica as a kit. Like it's got the full kit with the Great Bear chassis.
All right, yeah, get that. The only issue, it's kind of difficult. Like, there's only one flag. There is an alternate sculpt flag you can get, but you don't necessarily need 2 units of Winter Korps infantry in a lot of cases.
Right.
Like, there are lists that certainly run it, but the reason I'm like cautioning that is like you kind of more wanting the 1 unit of Winter Korps infantry and give them both the autocannons because that's the best weapon. I don't know. I don't think it's ultimately you probably just like with most of the armies, you grab the three main like the battle group, the core, and the auxiliary. But I think in the case of Winter Korps, bears definitely mentioning that the SKS cadre is just super good. It is not only really fun, really powerful models, like literal staples of the army, and it's also cheaper. It's also gives you something that can play Umbri if you decide that Winter Korps is not for you, or you just want to at a later date flex into Umbri. So yeah, I would in general say Mana War, probably the Mana War boxes. I think this might come back into one of the issues. Mana War are in a weird spot. I reckon about a year ago, they were actually on the right level of survivability, and then all of a sudden they kind of became not. And I don't know if it was just straight power creep or was the game moved around them, but yeah. Like, I do remember times when Wrecking Crew were quite survivable, and like Armor 24 Wrecking Crew with Tatiana was a thing, and then it sort of just fell away.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I mean, I think in the right circumstances, they're still useful. Apparently someone is doing pretty well with them at Nova right now. He's a pretty well-known player.
Dan from Michigan. Yeah.
Yes, Dan.
Oh yeah. All right, we could come back on because all right, you know. All right, I'm gonna.
We can talk about it in the like when we go through the casters.
Like, you know what? I gotta give respect to this. That's a mage static great bear. I know this kind of build. When you do something like this, you have something very specific in mind, and
it's very guided. Yes, it's not a main list for sure. But yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. So I think we covered pretty much getting somebody new started. Another thing I would maybe want to talk a little bit about is the Merc options for Winter Korps. I know I believe we used quite a bit of the Merc options, or at least we use some of them a lot. So if you want to elaborate a little bit on what's useful for.
All right. So the first thing, obviously, the first thing to know is that Puissance, the strength buff for Winter Korps for melee, is not actually faction tagged, and it is a very good thing to put on any of the Super Junior. Frankly, actually, any of them. You can like Puissancing like Carver is a thing, but obviously the big draw card is like putting on say Aberration or Big Pig,
Right.
or even it's not quite as good because there's a bit of upkeep mismatch, but you can also put on Invictus.
Right, yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
sort of
In that,
juggle with the other spell there. I can't remember what it's called.
yeah, the death. What was it like? Hellwrought. The
Yeah,
other
yep, the
thing,
armor buff.
the other
Hmm.
thing too. Yeah, the other thing is that in addition, wield secrets, which is the spell that gives you prowl and pathfinder, also has the similar clauses, and
Oh,
you super heavy like sorry yeah super heavies don't get the benefits from concealment, but they do get concealment. So a very common thing you can have a caster like Vilcall who take Fog of War and Wield Secrets, and then they put the ship and Passance if you want for the third, although I'd probably want Superiority instead. But you could put Wield Secrets on Big Pig, and Big Pig will then have Stealth, and from Fog of War they get the concealment, and then they get full on stealth. That is those two components, and also you can put like Will Seek Kruger is also fun. Although I think that's not as good as Will Seek as putting Vision on Kruger now, but we'll get into that in a sec. By the way, these little tweaks mean that you have to evaluate the mercs a little differently. Namely, the faction is more merc accommodating than it first seems. There are some lists where it's not. For instance, as we're looking at this Tatiana list, ignoring the fact like Colden Damo, Damian Korovnik, we just call him Damo around here. Like he is not really a merc because he turns into a faction model. But you know, he's there with the casters he's with, basically, if they have a spell that's abusable, which really is Tatiana and Yana.
right.
But yeah, the if in looking past that, basically, if the mercs are there and they're being choices, you have to be mindful of these like little tricks. Another good one actually is Valeri. Kill order is not faction tagged either, and obviously you can't put shield guard the shield guard battle plan at all costs on mercs, but you can put it on stuff that will protect mercs. So a pretty common trick I think that's going to happen going forward is you play Valeri and you play her with Nastilla and Kruger because those are good models and they work well with the infantry comps Valeri often wants to run. And then Valeri can back them up by like putting a rock wall for Kruger to hide behind and then giving vision. You know, Nastilla provides vision for Kruger, and then Valeri has access to shield guards for Kruger, and that becomes a model that's incredibly difficult to dodge. I wouldn't say impossible, but I mean, remember we were looking at this whole jamming problem in air quotes here, and I told you that's not an issue. This is kind of the reason why I don't think it's an issue, because it happens differently. Like, Valeri can make a impossible to kill fort of like hounds with iron flesh behind a rock wall and backed up with a vision Kruger and all of them in range of shield guards. Like, what is getting through, right? It'd have to be something super bonkers. And if that's the case, fair enough. Also, it probably was worth more than the slash 15 points that you're actually offering up, but not really.
Right.
So yeah, that's a like bit of a tangent, but that's kind of
Yeah.
where you have to think about with the merc choices there. First of all, so if your caster is good for it, a lot of them actually, because a lot of them are surprisingly they're not really that good for mercs. Tatiana is friendly. He does appreciate a lot of the times what they bring to the table, so you just got to balance that one out a bit. I think Yana as well, because Yana kind of wants more. Yana wants a lot more faction models to trigger Avenging Force, and also just to put Fury's strength on. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with mercs to start with. Now, in terms of the big power hitters, you have Nastilla and Alexia. Now, I think this is a weird problem with Manowar, but Manowar are weirdly the best thing to revive with Grim Returns, which is idiotic sounding. Your 10 box armor 19 model, which you can repair, is not the correct choice, is kind of a weird place to start. But hear me out.
Yeah.
The reason for this is because if you think about what kills a unit of Manowar, they tend to go through all of them at once because Manowar don't really spread out. And like people don't like they don't love tap Man of War randomly. They're going to hit them with cannons and boosted attacks and melee charges and things like that. And you kind of tend to lose whole units at once, or you'll lose two models of a unit. And because they're so expensive, relatively speaking, like if you think about it, you just lost 2/3 of a heavy and you now have to hit back.
Right.
Yeah. I, however, have found that Gunner, well, first of all, actually, I'm going to preface all this. First of all, Revivers in this edition, I still think not really that strong. Probably don't play into it. Play into it sometimes if you want, but it's sometimes food. But Shock Troopers in general are better revived targets, and especially Gunners, because Gunners can be revived and then they won't be able to attack, but because of the way the Gunner unit works, they can be moved and pushed. Like, if you move a unit up, even if you revive someone into it, you can repo to spread them out, revive afterwards. Gunners in general tend to not lose the entire unit all at once because they're a bit difficult to dislodge with shooting. They abuse terrain, like I said a couple of times. So that would be another thing to think about with Merc choices. And the reason I bring all this is because now you kind of can do it properly with Alexia and Nastilla. It's not the primary game plan. I think a package of Alexia, Nastilla, and Kruger is a really nice Merc base to start with. And there are certain lists I have an unironic quad gunner list with Valeri, which I actually think is really damn good. And that is a package that's also there. So it's actually got 4 of the best spray units in the game, backed up with one of the best spray solos in the game. I'll take
it. Another one that I've seen popped up, and I think it's mostly over in the U.S., is either a bomber or a raider. Sometimes 2 raiders, honestly. I saw that a lot at Boker Brawl, where with ECAT, or you guys call it Katie. And I didn't know what your opinion on that was.
Not my cup of tea personally, because the damage caps out.
Okay.
I know what they're going for. I think I prefer different models, but I understand and where it's coming from. Like, I played into it a couple of times, especially at CanCon. Like, was the first main time I said. It's like, how do I put it? It's really difficult to kill the Cadal balloons. Like, I played the mirror, and it's just will run a flank, but you are also accepting sometimes you have a model that is like 13 points that actually can't kill anything.
Right. Yeah. Another package that I saw was the Nastilla preparation with a bomber, and it's basically to give vision to to the bomber and make it even harder to kill.
Yes.
But yeah, it sounds like just about the same idea.
I think that package makes more sense with Raider personally, just because it's cheaper, and the Raider is a bit more YOLO, but it's not like the bomber is a bad call, especially because points.
Right.
Oh no, I had to take bomber instead. Right, I had to take 2 really good flames. So, oh no, what's going on? Right. I think it comes down to as well. A lot of these are Katie builds, and I personally don't like Katie at the moment. And I know that was a point of contention between the two.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit on that when we start talking about casters. Which, if you want, we can jump right in and talk about some of the casters. You want to talk about Katie a little bit?
Oh, why not? I'll put it this way: I played when we were trying to organize this cast. I broke out. I busted out the good old Mastodon. I converted up and got out Katie, and that's like a drug, right? Like, playing a Mastodon with Katie is just, it's almost like it was really, really strong and they nerfed it. But you know what? It's still kind of like, this is a model that steps on like orphanages and then cleaves through like, hopes and dreams. And while it's at it, it kind of shoots off your army off the table. I played into one of my good friends. We'll call him Good Josh because he's better than the Josh who's on the business. You heard it here first. Business Josh will freely admit to that, Gigantor. But no, this is Josh Dickinson, who's actually on Sixes to Win.
Oh, okay.
And he was playing. I loved this list because it was funny. he made a who's their Nicane, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a Nicane list, but the caster is Kythos. He literally made a Nicane list and deleted Nicane because he realized Kythos is better in every way, including all the Incorp. And you know what happened? Yeah, guess what? Machine Wraith like Dominators are ridiculous models, and Night Terrors are still really good. And he was like, I have a defense here to put a exploding powder keg so that he could attack it with his own models. And as long as he didn't roll the doubles, he could de-incorp himself for the feat, which I thought was wild. But I was like, he got me pretty good until he didn't, because the game kind of dragged out long enough, and I was able to protect the Mastodon, and he killed my Nastilla with a Machine Wraith. He had went all in to kill the Vision Kruger, for instance, and I killed we had a lot of back and forth trading. But ultimately, I was able to claw it back and ultimately win simply because, even though we were running low on clock, simply because it just couldn't kill the Mastodon, and then it'd just walk up, it would squash one of the Criterions and cleave into another Criterion. It'd just shoot some random, it'd shoot a cannon, oh, okay, I guess I'll take the mortar shot and I'll get blow up a bunch of your Mechanothralls, I guess, and trigger Vengeance, but you're so far away, it doesn't matter. I might as well take the Ganon. The cannon hits, alright, you get knocked down, now you don't get tough, right? That's very, very solid. Okay. That was great. That was good. This was very good. I should have lost. I really should have.
I was going to say, you still don't like Katie? That sounds great to me.
No, because the problem with Katie is that I really should have lost because I had to repeatedly go down to zero camp. And I was...
Yup. I was going to get to that, yup.
Katie is like playing with the Suicide Pact, and oh my god, you are very much playing by the skin of your teeth. And I think in another edition, or even earlier, actually no, 100% this was the case. Earlier in Mark IV, when factions weren't so fleshed out, Katie was quite strong. I mean, it's not like she was super strong, because not only was her feat better, she was able to correctly weasel out of a lot of assassinations, and in turn these tools that were coming into her were more difficult to kill her, right? So they weren't as good at killing her. Now I think the game is more lethal than ever. Her feat is worse. You can't even feed on a unit speed 6 range 12 guys and be safe, which is really bad. Her feat is strictly melee, which is you can't even feed on models like Sludge and necessarily be safe. Right? Because you might just be so close you just get killed by something else charging you, right?
Right.
Again, in that list, the Night Terrors, they certainly terrified me. These are the problems with Katie, and I think that always is a bit of a problem to have a caster, because she otherwise is so damn good, but the assassination threat is just really on the table all the time, and her feat is just not quite so strong anymore.
And it also seems like it's sort of balanced that way, that she is strong but fragile, as far as you need to know when to use the feat, when it's safe and when it's not safe.
I think honestly, most games I actually don't use the feed at all, or if I'm feeding, it's I'm feeding for one model.
Right, yeah, something that's important that you don't want into your lines.
Exactly.
Another thing that I noticed is that I think Nastilla and her are gonna be really good friends.
She is a caster at the moment to run Nastilla, yes.
I've been looking at some combinations with Tempest and what's her spell there?
Dark Seduction, yeah.
Yes. You can get some pretty good things lined up with that in the right circumstances, obviously. But
yeah, look, put it this way. I think it's combo, and then the fact that you have all of those other random shit you can do, it's a cherry on top. You're not taking Nastilla Dark Seductioning to get the perfect Tempest angle. You're taking Nastilla because you can gallows people into Aberration's threat range. And then this is all a bonus. And they also fit each other really well because, like, oftentimes, like what you're really feeding on with Katie is you're feeding to protect a thing so that it doesn't get charged. Ideally, in Melee, you've just got to counterbalance with the fact that you may die very hard.
All right. Well, let's talk about someone whom we both like very much. Let's talk about our girl Vilkul.
Okay, this is the second quote problem with Katie. It looks real. This is going to sound really personal opinion. Katie and Vilkul somehow cover the same matchups, and Vilkul she's amazing. Weird because she's a caster. I remember first looking and like you're like the dumb part of Sorcerer, right? Like you're just the axe murdery part of Sorcerer, and like I say Sorcerer 1, Sorcerer 2, even Sorcerer 3 has this whole component going on. It's like Sorcerer 3 but slightly faster. And then I put on the table a few times, and she's fun. She's so good, and she feels very rewarding to get right. And then she's also just really strong. So yeah, but Vilkul, she's all of the problems I had with Katie in terms of protection and also just not dying, like dying. Vilkul kind of those problems. I mean, look, ultimately, Vilkul is quote a bad caster in air quotes in a scenario pack that she is incredibly good at abusing, which makes her an amazing caster. Furthermore, she's also kind of proof of why casters with rack 3 almost by default are just really good support casters because they have 3 rack slots. And you see this with Vargas in Gravediggers, and it's a real standout there because Vargas is the only 3 rack caster in Gravediggers, but just like the extra power you get from just having 3 slots because you just got, especially because in Winter Korps, you often are wanting to get Avenging Force and Superiority. Because basically that's like your jack package there. And then the fact that you can Avenging Force forward one of the best assassins in the game is just a very neat bonus. Like if we look at wind back to like Katie, you Avenging Forcing Katie forward so that she could stab you with her axe is kind of a thing sometimes. But real, right? You Avenging forward Vilkul so that you can just, how do I put it? You can have them respect you as a woman and just kill the shit out of them. That's a
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. And she is very good. What I didn't ask this with Katie, but what does her army normally look like? I know there's a few ways to build it, but what usually do you bring with her?
with Vilkul or with Katie.
Katie, we kind of talked a little bit about. We didn't actually explain it, but
I'll go back into Katie. Like honestly,
yeah, because it might help somebody starting out with the army.
yeah, fair. Look, Katie is actually super flexible. She can obviously, as I said, she ran the Mastodon with Vader. She runs Nastilla really well. I actually do think that might be the place to start. Is Nastilla at the moment because it's a really fun and strong package.
Right.
I think though, when you play Katie, the first thing you should do when you're building a list is to just put Katie's card down and then put some rack spells up and try and figure out what you're sort of putting in so that you know what kind of arm to go. Because one of the complications with, say, like when I had a Mastodon build, for instance, right? Do you take Avenging Force? Do you take like superiority for your other model? I guess you're taking Iron Flesh, but maybe like those kind of questions get a bit awkward, right? This is why I'd say like so that's why you notice Katie builds I've seen if they've got like the things they kind of often don't have, they'll like cut out one of the things. You really want to take Tempest with her, for instance, so often you want an Arc Node to get it there, which is either a Direwolf chassis or just have a bunch of jacks and then you'll get an Arc Node. Like one of the most beautiful Arc Nodes in the game is a flying freaking avalanche. But then the counterbalance that, You also want the models that work well in the Stilla, like the Sky Bomber, the Kruger, stuff to revive. Yeah.
Yeah. I have used freezing grip with her before, and it's fun. It can be effective, but I can see how Tempest is better overall.
Tempest is usually better. There are reasons freezing grip would be better. Obviously if they have targets like freezing grip's a 5% spell when you take it, like 5% of the matchups you'll take it for. But yeah, like those 5% ones you're gonna like if you're playing the mana war, it'd be real bad, right? It will be really
um, and do you try to leverage? I should know the name of the spell, but it's
Invocations of Wrath.
yeah, Invocations of Wrath. Yes.
That's kind of what building her for. Like, really, if you are playing Katarina, you should really have a means of leveraging invocations because it's just super strong. Now, if I were to flip this on its head, I think Vilkul's army building is more straightforward, but also very flexible. The straightforward part is when you're playing Vilkul, building a list for Vilkul, you need to make sure that you can rack either Avenging Force or Fog of War and still have it make sense within your army. To recap on what Vilkul herself does, she has Prowl on her battle group. She herself has it. She gives it as a field marshal. As we said, she is one of the most hyper dangerous assassins to exist. So you kind of want to leverage that Avenging Force component. She also has a Cloud Wall feat. Cloud Walls in general favor range over melee. And then finally, she has 3 rack slots. The 3 rack slots mean that she's actually quite flexible in how she supports. As I said earlier in the cast, you can have the big pig option there where you prowl the big pig and do stuff like that. This will also apply to other super juniors. I don't really think she works that well with Nastilla personally, but mostly because I haven't really found a list that it works well with compared to just other choices. I think pig's probably still better. Or you just don't take it and you take just more Kador, which also works. In general, she wants good self-sufficient stuff to kind of win the attrition game with and scalpel out problems. I find in general I list witches. Let's see. Gunners, hounds, Winter Korps infantry, and snipers, just one of each as a baseline. And that's just because like it's just a very generic combo. But what you're doing is you want to just have a list that just fights well enough and can add angles to her assassination run. I find it's very important as well that you take 2 Winter Korps officers with your Vilkul. You definitely want one because what Vilkul's maximum assassination threat baseline is 18. And with Avenging Force, it is 21. But the actual true max technically is 23 or greater. And the reason why is that she has Swift Hunter through the officer. And you want to be able to, at any time, give Cool both Swift Hunter and rerolls to her Swift Hunter through combat coordination, so that you can tell your opponent that you threaten 23 inches, stars align. You never have to act on it. I've only done it once, and I failed the assassination anyway. That was actually against Gigantor, funnily enough, but I was trying to kill Huxley. I came close to, which was even funnier. But you're actually almost never pulling the trigger on something like that, but your opponent starts to respect it. And if they don't, you kill them. Which is a lot of Vilkul, really. And then I just killed them. They walked down the street, they looked at me the wrong way. I guess it's better sharpen my axe. It's time to go.
It's funny you mentioned that because I just played a game this last week in the on game night, and my opponent was like, "All right, so Vilkul threat 21." I'm like, actually 23." And I explained it, and I've actually haven't been playing a whole ton over the summer, but I was pretty rusty. But I I like to play my practice games. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially with Vilkul, I'll be like, well, this I could try and assassinate you and kind of work out the assassination if my opponent's okay with it, and then we figure out if it was worth it or not. And at the end, I was doing well in the game, but I was out of time because I'm taking way too long. And I'm like, well, the only way I can win this without clocking would be to try and kill you, but let's see if it works anyway. And the Swift Hunter part of it came into play because I'm trying to finagle how to get enough distance, and yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yep. Nice. Uh, good
But yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
we can keep talking about Bill Cole.
Yeah, no, it's this is the thing is like with casters like Vilcall, like there is a like also by the way, when I said it can be greater, it's because you can put what you call it, puissance on her, and if you have puissance, you have beat back.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. And if you want a real headache, like a real mind cycloning in and then beat backing everything is a bit of a weird
Yeah.
case. Like that one I will really admit doesn't really like it. We'll use air quotes. It doesn't work, but like it is still a thing that, especially if you've got a caster that you're getting into, where you can use cycle, like you can forfeit a few attacks just to beat back something to get into the range of the caster. Um,
Mm,
that's still relevant, right?
yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think with Vilcall though, the big thing to like separates it what you want to do with practice is you want to practice using her to kill things that aren't the caster, partly through her army and then partly patience and practice. Because if you can have her kill a thing, and because she's very much like a nuclear missile, are able to ways to get her to kill something and then cyclone and then use the repo card to just get in position. That is another way she can trade up, because obviously she's still really good at killing just stuff in general. And I would recommend that as like a point of practice. The other thing too is that she has Prowl for Battle Group, but she doesn't have Pathfinder. She doesn't give it out, and I think that's the reason why my tried and true combo is tried and true. Anyway, my still tried and true combo is taking for her battle group Razor plus Medveditsa, and the reason to begin with I picked those two was because both of them have Pathfinder, and that means that they can
Mm,
Avenging Force. They can either sit in rough terrain and get the benefits of Prowl, or they can Avenging Force through rough terrain and present other. And I think, therefore, when we're talking about Vilcall, you want pretty much a competent list accounting for these quirks of her and then going from there. And I think, though, that apart from that, you're pretty much like, you're pretty open with what you can do with her. Mostly will come down to what matchups you want to play Vilcall into. Because I
mm.
would recommend in any competitive pair, you probably consider her extremely strongly. I wouldn't just windmill slam her in there. She is very good, and look, I will windmill slam her. That's because I love playing Vilcall. Even she is also one of those casters because her strong scenario game. You can win matchups that you are dead to rights on because you can just push the scenario
Right.
and force your opponent to make fuck ups. And she likes good independent modules. So I find she's Bison as a result because Bison can be used to scalpel out threats and just ultimately, if you fuck up in a bit alive, you can just shoot them with a both barrel shot and just draw
Right.
the damage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like obviously you probably won't come to that, but you being able to use the Bison to scalpel out pieces, that will definitely come up.
So I'm gonna summarize quick. So basically, we got Katie, very flexible. You might want to start with the rack to figure out what direction you want to go. Also, you want to kind of leverage invocations a little bit there, and you probably want a little something in there to help keep her safe. Maybe a shield guard here or there. As far as Vilcul goes, again, very flexible. You want something that sort of helps with her threat. Like that way, you have threats from multiple places, and you want self-sufficient. That seemed to be very important because she doesn't want to be. She can support with the upkeeps, but she doesn't want to be supporting too much out there. So
Yeah.
does that make sense?
That's pretty well said. Like, I think Vilkul as well. Like, she actually prefers running gunline stuff
Okay.
because it makes for because those models, apart from being Winter Korps strength,
Right.
they become more self-sufficient as well. They're just the whole army can sort of like do good enough work that when she comes in, she basically is like the fucking sledgehammer going down. I think Vilkul, like, you basically should be freely cognizant of Vilkul's quirks and build her towards the matchup you want her to fight to. It's quite okay to just say, I don't want to play into this matchup with, like, make a list to cover it, and you'll be good for that. Before we leave Vilkul, we actually should read about Razor, and I'm going to explain, like, how Razor kind of sort of works.
Yeah. Razor's very weird in a good way, but very strange. I didn't know what to think of Razor at the beginning.
I knew what to think of Razor at the beginning. He is terrible. He's the worst thing I've ever seen, and he's 18 points. This is an awful model. And then, because I was operating under the negative, like, range assumption, and then I played him because things were changing, but I'm also like, you know what? I really should play this guy because also he's got Pathfinder and he's got some fun rules. And then I, like, put it on, and, like, Razor is the ultimate playmaker. If you have a choice of killing a model, like, okay, one of my good friends, Alex, who honestly was the guy who originally told me of Razor as a meme coin, which is how we ended up starting a whole
Razor coin. I've heard about it.
He's a meme coin. It's Razor stocks, right? And like, no one, like, it was just like, because it doesn't make any sense. Why would you pay an 18-point guy with a range 8 gun, right? And all these random rules, which should never work, right? But Razor is like the ultimate model for he is so bad on paper and he's so strong. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because he's a playmaker, and into other factions now, he's actually extremely strong. The big one is Crix, I will say. Like, he by himself means that Kador has an excellent Crix matchup, and if you're looking at a teams event, it is often just worth including the Kador guy to just kill the player. And I do mean that he's just extremely good into Crix because he's just one of the most efficient ways of killing their medium-based trash, and in return, Crix actually can't kill Razor except by Sub-Zero Feet, because he's immune to corrosion. All their good guns are corrosion-based. Obviously, like, getting a melee heavy into him would kill him, but this is a model with Swift Hunter and Repo 3, and he fully dictates the engagement. He dictates it from start to finish.
That makes sense.
Absolutely infuriating model, by the way, to deal with. And obviously with Vilkul, having this thing in the back pocket, which really synergizes well with Kit, also means that, in addition, okay, well, sometimes they have non-typed guns. Cool, he now has stealth. And he then allows you to just open up some angles with, often through slams, which your opponent just has to respect way too much. Like, way more than they'd like to. And that's why Razor, in particular, Vilkul, just seems to, like, see a lot of play. And I think in general, he's just a really, like, he's an absolute playmaker. You do need the list around him to kind of work, but a lot of times, like, he'll just go in and he'll just wipe it. Like, again, with this whole thing with, like, Kador has extremely strong models that are, extremely good models that are flexible. Razor is one of those, right?
Mm.
If you're shooting into a double boosted Tri-Chimerics with a shield, like, so double armor buff Tri-Chimerics with the negative range Paragon, yeah, he's not going to do much. I say that, but he'll actually do quite a lot still with his gun. But neither here nor there. Either way, it'd be like a one-way trip for him. that you just have to accept that. That's fine. But if like that's a general faction weakness. But if he's able to basically go into a Crix army and go like chunk 2 Criterion, slam one into a blob a few Mechanothrals with your grenades in order to escape out there and repo 3 boards and just keep rinsing and repeating. Like, that is a very strong attrition, especially if you have... Well, remember this whole thing about Kador not having...
Hey everyone, I just wanted to apologize because it seemed like Chris's audio kind of cut out for a little bit, and I didn't realize it till I was editing the podcast. But I still wanted to include that section because it was a pretty interesting talk about Razor, and I'm pretty sure in that part he was describing how well he unjams. All right, so hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Bye.
Yeah, you here, and you've probably put weird places with Iron Flesh, and they've kind of weirdly survived, and like they've been charged by some guys like, I don't know, Criterion or something, right? Everything's a bit awkward, and then all of a sudden Razor is forward and shoots one of the guys who hurt like one of your hounds and blows him away, kills him. Swift Hunter's forward, and then he gets a full activation, and he moves about like 20 inches across the table and kills 7 models. And your opponent's like, "What the fuck was that? How can I plan for this?"
Yeah, and here comes Razor with a steel chair.
I mean, he has a shield with a buzzsaw attached to it, so he does actually hit you with a steel chair with a like thing.
Yeah.
That's anyway, right. That's Razor.
All right, cool.
So
yeah. Let's move on to let's talk about the third one. I call him the so now you've graduated from Winter Korps school. Play this caster. Our boy Saverin.
Saverin Valeri, or Valeri Saverin. Valeri is a funny one to me because I keep trying to get rid of him from pairings, and I keep bringing him back because he's just really good and has a lot of good answers to stuff. In fact, Valeri is where that quad gunner list I'm talking about, I might even play at a certain point, has emerged from. Look, Valeri is the commander infantry caster archetype, and does it in some interesting ways. I think Valeri is a more pronounced weakness than KDE, but has the same weakness in dying. Valeri, however, also has the tools to try and avoid dying, which is nice. I think, therefore, when you're playing Valeri, you need to be able to play the game without kill order. Is the first thing I would say. Like, you just gotta... because there's going to be matchups where you're not allowed to use kill order, or else on pain of death. I've talked about dying a lot with Valeri, but trust me, this is a thing that you really got to get in your head. Valeri loves dying.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of it. Always, in general, you should be basically looking to maximize both his safety, but also you're trying to ride a line between him being safe and him also being able to get unexpected kill orders and then piss off. So the thing with the kill order is the first, like his primary draw card. It's his battle plan, and it ties into his feat. His feat just is now 3 battle plans, and you ignore cover. The status effect when basically making attacks, or making gunshots, I should say. Now, with kill order, at the time, the way it works is at the time you pick it, you pick a model. When you declare range of 10, you pick an enemy model/unit with line of sight. While you're within 10 inches of Valeri, your models gain bonuses to shoot that guy. You, Valeri, do not have to be within 10. So a very common thing to do is you try and set up a turn where you'd like walk up, kill order a target, shoot it with Valeri's hand cannon with Swift Hunter for an officer, kill the guy, and then step back 2 inches, and then maybe pop the repo card or cast Tides of War for the extra 3. So you're now 15 inches away. The next level thing is you take Avenging Force and you take a list that can use Avenging Force, and you Avenging Force Valeri forward so that you can maybe use the 3 inches to get within the 10. So you then kill all of them, and then you run away. Or and shoot and whatever, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be way. But yeah, like, these, like, he's also the only tactician model in faction. And oftentimes, because of that, you need to be able to play the game such that he doesn't ever have tactician and only ever use it for your feet. If you can do all those things, he is a super rewarding caster, and he has a lot of unique outs for stuff that just do not exist in faction. And that's why we love him. You can play him with whatever you really feel like. I think, honestly, it'd be more about what having to play into is more important here. Right? Like, if you're...
But he's definitely going to be infantry heavy, right? Or
he is very infantry heavy, but he does like the Super Juniors. He's always liked Carver. He's even liked Magnus, honestly. Because again, like, kill order plus their personal output is just good. He, like, my favorite go-to build for last year was a Dire Wolf and then Big Pig, and then you just fill out the rest with just stuff. And God, it was a good list. But because you could take a Dire Wolf and Big Pig, you could cut Arcane and then just have so much extra infantry. Now I think instead you were looking at Nastilla to fill that role, but you'd be doing kind of similar things. You don't necessarily have to go Arcanist free, but it's an option there. I've also built Valeria lists where we've gone like double Avalanche, and we've just gone the world's longest range of Avalanches just so we can make sure that we kill some stuff. He doesn't have to go... When we say infantry, by the way, remember Bison are technically infantry models.
right.
And obviously Lazarenko is an infantry man. Like, you don't need to spam with him to get good results.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, we have variety. We have a variety of infantry models that all do work. So we don't have to. Yeah, that's probably one of the... I would say it's probably one of the strengths of the army is that you don't have to spam anything really.
Yeah, and I don't even think the spam is actually like strong. Like, the only model I liked spamming, honestly, and you're gonna find this fucking snipers, and that's just because right? There's just some matchups where having 9 snipers means 9 dead models.
Yeah,
cool.
Makes sense.
Obviously, that's 9 plus hounds, and like we say hounds a lot, but remember hounds are like 2 guys plus Scribola, and man, Scribola is a beast.
Yeah.
The guy with the chain gun. For everyone playing one, if you have the chance, kill Scribola first.
Yeah.
If you're playing Kato, a good chunk of this game is making sure you get as much value out of that guy as possible, because he will really... Look, he's basically like the guy from Predator with a minigun, but he doesn't die. He just keeps going and going.
One of my buddies calls him Skibbity. I'm sure you appreciate the nickname. So,
yeah, that guy.
So we just call him Skibbity. But yeah, he's definitely he is the unit, and the other 2 are his companions.
Tetra, like, that's the thing, is like the worst in air quotes member of the unit is like what was it, Fred, who's the guy with a grenade launcher. So it's like, which sounds bad, except no, it's like a better hand cannon with arcing fire. He's often the guy who, he's so bad, don't worry about him, and picks up and kills like an entire unit of your support stuff.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. All right. So it looks like we've got Valeri covered.
Between those 3, and look, despite my thoughts about like Katie, I don't think if she makes a pairing, it's not for a bad reason, right? Like, I think that there's perfectly valid reasons to have her in the pairing. I think those 3 are your primary casters, personally. I also would like...
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why
realistically, I'm gonna add Tatiana in there, because she's the other one. Like, those are the 4 primary casters that I would say make up most pairings, and you kind of see it shake out.
Yep. Yeah, we can start talking about Tatiana a little bit, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
So
the other two we'll touch on, but probably be a little quicker.
uh, well, like we
Yeah.
can explain at least what their flaws are and why, because I think their flaws are more building flaws. But we'll go into Tatiana. So Tatiana, Commander Tatiana Sikora is the Man of War caster. She's in a Man of War suit. She has a big old axe. Ignore all those things. Our friends, Alex and me like to actually the entire Australian group like to joke that she's actually a Skaven, from Warhammer. She pretty much acts and behaves like a Skaven warlord, which place of honor, and that place of honor is pretty much hugging the kill box. Tatiana, Tatiana for a girl in Man of War armor is very, very killable because she's only defense 13. And unlike Yana, when we get into Yana, has a whole bunch of ways of avoiding dying. So does Valeri, funnily enough, and Vilkor. They're all really good at it. Even Katie, to some degree, like Katie is, we said, is like really, really, really playing with the razor's edge, but she can ultimately make herself immune to spells or untargetable spells, and she has a defensive feat that can just shut down a lot of melee stuff. Tatiana, on the other hand, is very, very exposed, and there's a lot of guns that really love killing her. So that's your first problem there. However, if you need numbers, and when I say numbers, more to hit, more damage, more armor, more faster, Tatiana does have you covered. I think where it comes down to with her is balancing her innate synergy with Manowar that you want to exploit with the fact that realistically her best draw card, and it's a fucking hell of a draw card, is Positive Charge. And Positive Charge doesn't necessarily require you to use Mana War to work. And I think that's where we kind of lean. I think a lot of Tatiana lists kind of are like 3 or 4 units of Mana War Hounds, or they're 2 units of Mana War Hounds and other stuff, and then like 3 or 4 heavies. I think whichever way you want to, like, we were talking earlier about problems with like hitting stuff and hitting it good. I think one of the reasons I'm personally like less fond of Tatiana is being nerfs to direwolves, because she was really strong with those back then. But guess what? When I say she was really strong, tragic nerfs to direwolves, it's just 1 point. Like that's actually what it is. And it's like, look, a direwolf with like only 1 buff that you put onto it through gritted teeth is not really going to do that well. Whereas, like, you can put Passons so it hits as hard as a Great Bear, and then you just shrug and go, okay, but what happens if I put Passons onto a Great Bear instead? Because the Great Bear will get there same threat range and will get there a bit harder and more accurately, and I don't need to babysit it. Well, Tatiana throws all that out the window because Positive Charge really, really works well with quantity, and she still can also Positive Charge models like Medveditsa, and you just kill the world.
Yep.
I can tell you comfortably that I've played Tatiana with Mastodons, and I've Positive Charged that thing, and I think in one activation, and shot up an army. That was a drug. That was a drug.
Yeah, I've played against Tatiana a few times. We have a local player that was banning her a lot, and yeah, I did notice that she is the weak link in the army. The rest of the army was bonkers hard to kill, but if I ever got a chance to kill her, I definitely would go for it.
Yeah, and that's what you like. Don't ever feel bad about trying to kill the Batman in this case with Diana. Like, that is her very baked in weakness. The way I've actually described her is that, did you ever play Ret back in Mark II or Mark III? Or play against Retribution?
Played against, yes.
Yeah. So she's basically Kador Assyria. She's
Okay.
very, very, very similar. She has numbers. She has more speed, more hit hard, more punch good, more faster. But like Assyria, she has a terrible late game. So you got to make sure that you try and win without it. And I say 100% correct, she has an extremely janky late game. Because I have, more times than I'd care to admit, used her to basically close out games with some Hail Marys involving, like, I did remember one game, I think it was in the Gigantor, I remember I Avenging Force and ran her onto a flag camping 7, right? Like, to score a point. I don't think it, like, then he had no way to kill her, right? For once. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I was using Avenging Force fully to get her to get the threat range that most casters get normally. But that is still like something that's in your prerogative. But a lot of like Tatiana's ability to personally do damage realistically requires still the application of positive charge, which implies that part of your army is still alive, and also the part of the army that your opponent wants to kill right away, like Damo or your Warjacks, hit super duper hard. I think in general with Tatiana, you want to, when playing her, you really got to like measure out where she can walk and do her battle plans and do her buffs, because some of her stuff is actually super wide range, but a lot of it is actually, it's within 10 or 11 inches. And this, coupled with the fact that you want to play super defensively, you got to get your positioning quite on point with her, I think. If you do that, like, I also think it's like a list preference thing. Again, you kind of want to play Tatiana when you have a reason to, and there can be very good reasons to. Like, I think honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, if I was to drop Valeri, I would probably replace it with Tatiana, and it would probably be for those matchups where, like, all right, I got to kill a Trimax, or I got to kill Vargas. Yeah, it's called okay. Like, then there's like the thing that stops me from necessarily saying that. It's like, all right, I got to kill Vargas for heavies, and then Vargas walks up and kills my cast by himself. It's not actually that hard. He just has to roll enough shots. It's like, I guess I'll just shoot you now. Good game. Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? You're gonna hyper aggressive towards it? Please stab you with my sword, my fucking bayonet as well. Yeah, but yeah, Tatiana,
Cool.
she's a numbers girl. I do think she does reward you for building good list comps, and if you have a good plan for it. And ultimately, there's nothing quite as like fantastic as like putting like positive charge on stuff and getting it to work. Definitely, if you take her, like, we haven't really talked about command cards because command cards are kind of implied, but you do need the hidden run command card with her. It's like non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable almost every caster, to be fair, I think, with like Winter Korps' particular layout, but especially with her. Either for herself or because of how strong it is with your positive charge model. Like, being able to shift around the positive charge, using it to kill one thing and then moving it to a bigger area, chef's kiss.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Yana a little bit, and then Boris. Yuck. I know they're not played as much. Yana actually does seem fun to play, if even if it's not, if she's way better in Old Umbre than she is in Winter Korps.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to touch on that. There's like night and day difference. Well, actually, no, we should touch on that because that kind of is why she ultimately is a very good with melee infantry, and even melee heavies to some degree, and Umbri is just a better faction for it. Well, let's see, like, when I've played her in Winter Korps, firstly, I do really find her fun. I think that if you were to build her, funnily enough, you need to find a way to try and play a list where, okay, I'm going to rewind this a bit. One thing we talked about, remember, with rack slot business of having 3 rack slots is super strong and having 2 is like, it's not as good. If you want a comparison, compare Tatiana and Yana. Tatiana has 2 rack slots and so does Yana, but Tatiana has, crucially, Avenging Force on her card. which means that you functionally have 3 rack slots again. You just have one that's bespoke for. Which means that Tatiana can take cards like she can take combos like Superiority Puissance or Superiority Iron Flesh, Puissance Iron Flesh, whatever you want, right? I mean, I forgot to say, my main criticism I hate about Tatiana, she's like a vending machine for buffs. She's one of the examples of why I do not like rack slots and like rack systems as they are, because she you can take the card that gives you an extra focus just so on turn 1 you can cast all your upkeeps. What a joke. That's who you see. So yeah, but that all said, cool. She still has access to the ability to have Superiority Iron Flesh, or like has a lot more flexibility. Yana, by contrast, does not have that and kind of needs to have the rack space to get the strength buff spell or the armor buff spell, but also needs 2 rack slots bespoke for if she's running Warjack. And that's kind of really what the more complicated answer why she's stronger in Umbri versus in Winter Korps is because in Winter Korps, she's really hemmed in by list constraints. Now, if we would compare by Umbri, you can take Lashing 10. First of all, you don't need to take anything to keep her alive, whereas in Winter Korps, it's really nice to put Iron Flesh on her. In Umbri, you can take a beast to Spiny Growth her. Like, she'll just use the Spiny Growth and she could be good to go. Umbri heavy.
She'll be safer anyway.
Yeah,
because of the Fury mechanic. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's to go with it, right? But trust me, it's like there's like a Fury mechanic, and then how do I put it? When James Morehouse played in the latest tournament, he was telling me quite happily he played Umbri and he played, and he got charged by a fully synergied up Jake's. It's just like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. You got into me. He didn't even need damage. Right? Like he took like almost no damage because he's sitting there at 24 or 26. I think it was 24, and he had the rabbit, Zacharias behind it, or Zacchaeus.
Oh,
yeah, right. It was just like, okay, good luck. So
nice.
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing that allows you to bounce colossals. Now, but critically as well, she can do all that stuff, but the heavies and Umbri do not need spells to get them into threat range. Hell, even if they did, you could take Lashing Tendril to get you there. So that means in Umbri, she has way more rack flexibility in my experience than she ever did in Winter Korps. So yeah, that's kind of her problem.
Yeah.
And like I think if I were like I've got some hypotheticals I would try, but also like the infantry component is a bit weirder now. And I'm not the big fan of trying. I keep trying to make pikemen work, and as I think they work really well, like one unit buried in your mountain of to basically be the counterpunch unit. That actually works really well. But like Yana doesn't really want an entire army of pikemen. Believe me, I've tried. Yana as well ultimately is a model with a extremely high amount of personal input and a beefy stat line who pays for it by having a feat. The feat is almost always fine to use just with Yana, and you just live with it. And sometimes you get to cleave and do stuff with other fun models, but it's never going to be like with a lot of feats that like. If I was to say, it's kind of like a Mark II feat, like that era of Mark II. Everyone just got kind of happy feats. But if I was going to say, she's basically like it's a feat that requires killing models in melee, and it doesn't give you crazy bonuses, but that's okay, right? Like using it to just maul people to death with your bear is still a-okay. I think also, and again, because of weirdly like her list comp, she tends to have a bit more overlap with Katie and now Vilkul, and both of them do it better.
Yeah, I was gonna make that point that they sort of do similar things.
Yeah,
in different ways. But
I do like to point out the like hilarity here. We are talking about one caster who's the best mage in a generation, who probably is the product of some questionable genetic breeding, right? Like, that's Katarina. We have the ultimate super assassin axe cop lady, the ultimate commando, who basically, what's the most commando thing? That's right, chopping people with your fire axes. And we have a lady on a bear. And we've said for all of these casters that they have very similar types of lists, which is really weird.
Welcome to Winter Korps.
I do say, I think that if you want to make her, like, she probably is, like, I'd like to try a build with a Mastodon and Razor as the battle group so that I don't need to take a force. Or I do take it, and I just take it for Razor and Yana because it's super good with Yana. And then that way you have the back slot freed up from not taking superiority so that you can go nuts, right? But you need to do things like that. And it's ultimately just a lot of work. And finally, we got Boris. Boris, I loved a year ago. I think he was really on the cusp. And Boris is kind of an example of when your caster is not your army makes your caster. Like, Yana's problem is that she's in a faction which is very gun focused for its, like, and its melee options are kind of a bit chunky by design. And she does sort of work with it, but not quite as well, and certainly not as well with comparison to Umbri. Boris is a similar case study of like problems with gun lists in Winter Korps, and it's specifically that they all kind of fall over the same problem, which is negative range effects. Boris is very good at winning matchups that he was going to win anyway, and he kind of has this problem that I found Kane can have, like, without even the draw card of Kane's ability to swing damage so well. Namely, like, Kane will absolutely crush matchups without contests that he was going to win anyway.
Gotcha. That I think that's the same problem. I played Firequill in Brine Blood.
Yeah.
And then some people.
Firequill doesn't belong in this conversation. He doesn't even. Firequill is worse than.
He's my boy. I played a meme list with him and two Abyssal Kings, and it was fun. But yeah, I knew what I was doing.
Good. Okay, you know what? I can respect that then, as long as you knew.
Oh no.
Up for.
No, I knew what I was doing, not as in like good gameplay. I knew what I was doing as in like just having fun and shooting and losing games.
Yeah. But yeah, I've actually forgotten about Firequill for God, because one of our locals tried doing the same thing, and I think did it like almost to prove like this is why this doesn't work. Why is my shooting caster the guy on the shark?
That is so true. Every time I made every time I made a list with Firequill, I'm like, I think that Ragemonger just does this better.
Yes. I mean, look, we all know that
and safer.
And that's I think ultimately your gun mage who's range 10 or range 8, but he's got snipe, but that doesn't count because it doesn't work with any of his defensive stuff. I mean, look, the ultimate thing I will say in January is how to make him better with Fortune Hunter. I think it actually made him worse, but crucially, they did make Firequill Starfish better, and that is really all that we care about with Firequill. It's only all I care about. But anyway, Boris. Yeah, he is a much better, much kind of nerfed list, and ultimately his feed is a bit too gun focused, which is a bit silly to say. The gun caster is very gun focused, but actually Boris's old feat was pretty combined arms. Like, you could use it to boost avalanche attacks, which is very important because the feat gave you a crit armor piercing guy, another fully boosted crit, and that was like one of the against it that really spiraled and cascaded. And it's also ultimately January was like the okay, out with the heavy cannon, in with the deep freezer. Let's go. The deep freezer is here. It's going to be beautiful. And we've played it, and the deep freezer isn't really there because ultimately it is a crit effect versus a heavy cannon's slam effect, and it became more expensive. So And actually, even more annoying is that deep freezer, like the heavy cannon, works well with the slam head, meaning that you have a nice cheap gunshot. Like I love this Boris list, which was 4 heavy cannon Great Bears and 2 avalanches, and some of the that was it. Beautiful list.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was my list from last year. I'm like, this list is probably actually just fine. I was looking forward to playing it, and then it just kind of doesn't work because range 15 allows you to shoot a range 12 into negative range effects. That's probably good enough. Range 9 with your gun line, again, like if you're able to shoot into things, that's beautiful, but you're not always like. If you play a Boris list, as I've done, with 3 or 4 volume fire, and you play into something that does not have negative range effects, you can guess what happens. It's not even a game. It's kind of actually a bad. If you do that at a games night, it's kind of annoying because like, oh, why are you really doing it?
Right.
Like it's not like it's the the worst crime you could get, but basically you just blast them off the table, or they're going to be staying out of your threat range, and they're just going to kill you, and your army is going to trade down because you can't efficiently shoot into it. Boris is kind of straitjacketed by the fact that he is a blessed gunman because of his Dark Unraveling, and yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I don't know. I really do love the guy, but also like it's more I love the model and the story more than anything. Not that I like the lists he can kind of get, and they've kind of gotten like again the fact that the lists have gotten worse because he's gotten too focused on the shooting part is just a bit sad. Anyway, actually, now that I think about it, the Firecore comparison is unfortunately not that far off because Firecore's feat is like Bradigan's feat, except it only works on your battlecruiser.
Yes. And you need units to play this scenario packet, and why not have units with better shooting?
Right? Yeah, because when I trolls, the real thing I think about is gun. Well, I do think about that. I think about that in like the Kithgard stuff, right? Because that's the kind of troll shooting pieces I remember getting by was Dozer and Smeg and the Bomber, which that's in the Kithgard package because they're doing another gun troll faction. Hopefully this one is good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I don't think about that when I'm like deep-born Diatroll and he shoots a squid at me. I'm just really confused instead.
All right. So let's we'll do this next segment make it a little brief because you've given us a lot of good information about Winter Korps in general. But just maybe like a couple of maybe tips and tricks on how to play the army better, something that would help someone that's trying to get better at the game. A little bit of advice from an expert. It could be something brief. It doesn't have to be like super deep or anything.
You know what? All right. Honestly, okay, not super deep. Fine. I'm not always the biggest fan of auto includes or saying something include, but the hounds are an auto include, and you should get used to playing that unit and playing it well because unlike almost every other auto include in any game I've ever played, I have nothing but kind words and loving praise for the hounds. And when I say they're an auto include, even in literally every list, it's because they are one of the best scenario tools to exist. Oh, that literally again they proved John Damaris wrong because they're but they're like a very they're like pretty much what I like about character units in general encapsulated in a slightly different way to the Black 13. And because of that, practice playing the hounds because that experience, regardless of what class you're playing Winter Korps, even if you're even playing Winter Korps, you might be playing Umbre, that experience will get you well. And using the hounds, you'll also be able to figure out, because a lot of the things hounds do, other units in Winter Korps actually do as well. So the shooting repo magnet, well, that's just what the shock trooper gunners do. the charging and shooting and doing all of that stuff, well, that's actually what manual suppressors do. If you've ever gotten your heavy suppressors, especially a kill ordered heavy, you know that heavy is just it's gone. We don't need to deal with it anymore. Yeah, getting the most out of them, learning like those things. It's just a nice way, a nice like entryway and learning point for other models. So yeah, I'll use that. That'll be mine.
Sweet. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, also bonus one: Winter Korps officer plus Scribala. Put what was it? Combat coordination on Scribala. Just do
it. Oh man, I like it.
In fact, get in the habit of putting Winter Korps officers in spots where you've mapped out which models they're like. This is a faction where it is super worth it to put like combat coordination on just random grunts, because those grunts still have super powerful weapons, whether it's a gunner, a suppressor, even a wrecking crew, because you can start trying to fish for crits or just like reroll the damage on the charge, or of course Scribble.
Yeah, or the bison.
Or the bison. The bisons are very common.
Those two are best buddies.
I know that they are. Remember I said that Vilcool wants 2 officers so that she can threaten her thing, and then I also said that I very much like taking 2 bison with her, or backup bison, who's 4 points instead, which is what was his name? Lazarenko. Yeah, you see how this all goes in together.
Yes. All right, so maybe something to give the opponent a little nugget to give the opponent on how to best beat Winter Korps. I know Winter Korps, they have a reputation for being a fair army and a 50-50 army, so you're not gonna get any slam dunks against them. But just maybe a little hacker trick to sort of play against them.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I actually agree on that assessment.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I did just say that you kind of dumpster cricks with Winter Korps.
That's true. That's true.
Dumpstering the best army in the game doesn't seem like fair. Also, 50-50 would get a 50-50 into Chimera, and if I could get a 50-50, I'd take it, right? I would take it.
Maybe it's a bit of an outdated feeling on the army.
First of all, we make a lot of jokes especially in Australia, like our opinions on Kador players. I know because I'm a Kador player, and sometimes we like to. It's just like a pity party, and like our action is terrible. It is terrible. Let's be fair. Like it needs buffs. It's really sad. Private Eclipse, when you're listening to this podcast, please. But as the inheritor. Did you know that people still thought that Kador was no matter how many world championships I won with them? Even when I was at the event. So good. Now, okay. The real thing, though, is that Winter Korps is actually quite medium to high skill cap in terms of how it's which is actually not like classic Kador necessary. Classic Kador was you had models that did stuff real good.
Yeah.
And this was where the fair component comes in. Like, the fair is better than your fair, is how it sort of worked, but you still needed to apply that. And that's why Classic Kador really struggled into, like, control effectively, unless you had specific tools and stuff for it. And, like, a good chunk of me growing up playing this game was working out how to beat unfair lists, right? Because if you played into a fair list, you just steamrolled them because all of a sudden all your shit worked, right? That is different to how Winter Korps, I feel, work. Winter Korps, if you give their models an inch, they will take a mile. Quite routinely, too. You need to look at this construction of how do you shut down their stuff from just being able to do what they want. You don't want games where you get multiple... like, if you can help it, you really want to avoid giving, like, the Hounds multiple activations. Getting Bison being able to make, like, 3 attacks and still be safe because they've Swift Hunted. When I said that a lot of the weaknesses to its capacity to deal with being told no. That is a pretty important reason why, because basically, if they can shut down your shit, they really start losing their steam. Like, Shock Trooper Gunners are one of the most terrifying units in the world, but Shock Trooper Gunners at range 5 into armor 24 or whatever, because you've stacked enough bonuses, they're not going to do anything. That's the kind of like way I would show them. It's like, your entire army is probably not going to be like that, and honestly, if it was, they're going to look at like playing something different. Like, that's when they bring up Tatiana and just like, okay, let's just hit at armor power 23, or we'll make a Mastodon hit at power 28. Let's go. But yeah, I'd say you'd be looking at how to leverage to try and kill all their tech pieces and their fun stuff that they like using. Because a lot of the Winter Korps casters, and like, well, actually, that's the secondary problem, is a lot of the Winter Korps casters are actually really killing you randomly with like dirty outs, which you also have to respect. So you need to filter what I just said through the lens of you might not be able to play the game with some of your best tools because your best tool is currently hiding at the back, axe murder on the loose, or a lady with a bear, right? Like, Yana's also terrible.
Yeah,
I like if you've played Yana, you've played Yana, right?
I have not actually played Yana yet. I didn't have the model till recently, and I was excited about it. She had gotten new rules, and then I keep hearing little whispers of like, yeah, she's not as good as we thought she was.
Go on, just play her anyway. Yes.
No, I will. I will eventually. I also haven't gotten many games recently.
That's fair. I can sympathize. But we'll put it this way. Yana will just go in and basically she will just kill a heavy and then just safe and then kill another heavy. There are games that are going to be. And you know what? It's fun. It's real good.
Yeah. yeah. No, for sure. All right. Well, I'll give you a chance to, plug in anything. Obviously, you got your podcast.
Yeah. So,
you're not going to WTC this year, are you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I figure you were taking a little.
I got married and I had some other stuff. I'm gonna be.
I hear you. Yeah. So anything you'd like, just go ahead and plug, and we'll wrap it all up.
You know what? I'll plug myself and my locals because honestly, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So my podcast is Dark Guidance, which is apparently the longest running. We're the oldest survivor. It's either us or Troll Scrum. And I've done the numbers. I'm pretty sure we predate Waters because I know what caused us to start the podcast.
I was doing a little research, and I think right now the only contender is maybe Battle Driven.
Sorry, not Scrum. That was just, I knew it was Trolls related.
Yeah, Turbo Scrum was also back in the day, but they're not around anymore. But yeah, Battle Driven's probably like your only, and I think you eke them out.
It's also Battle, and you know what? It's so back in the year oldie days that I'm okay with us just joint sharing it. So you know what? Listeners all the Battle Driven. I haven't listened to them in a while, but I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. Anybody I mentioned normally is great. Like Musing Panda, awesome stream and podcast. Dark Guidance, obviously. It's one of the greats. You guys should definitely post more.
Yeah, I gotta apologize for that. But we do post when we're basically keen on got something there. But all right. Real life, unfortunately, has been finding its way. But yeah, listen to us on Dark Guidance when we intermittently post. We do, I think, listen to us. We are somehow still the oldest rank. And then my locals who do post a lot more. First is Sixes to Win. They run a good show.
Yeah.
The Business, which doesn't run a good show, and Josh knows that. And
I love The Business
channel, and then finally Dual Attack, which Connor, Tim, and Lewis have done a fantastic job of just like putting our crap we do down under on the internet.
Oh, definitely.
Give all three of them a listen or a watch. Especially Dual Attacks on YouTube specifically, but yeah.
Definitely some high quality games on Dual Attack.
If you want to see a clip of me, if you want to see me at least 3 or 4 of the episodes.
Yep. Yep, not gonna lie, I've watched it intently.
If you want to see good Winter Korps games, I would maybe do that. But honestly, especially one of those tournaments, I was literally like, I'll just want this Vilk cult. This is too fun. It might not give you the best idea of how the works. But yeah. Awesome. And I guess listen to the Arcane Precision. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. We've been how long have we been trying to get this together? It's been like a couple months now.
It actually a couple of months of this. Like honestly, I think at that point I still was thinking of releasing something. And now pretty much all of Umbre's out. So like
I find it hilarious because I can't ever keep my mouth shut, and we were sort of working in the background trying to get you on, and I put a hint of you being on the it's like the podcasters or content creators Discord, and Josh Bates like, oh, maybe I should have you on. You live close to me, and then you were on his episode before me.
I could see Josh's apartment from the roof of my apartment, so yes, he does live close to me. It was quite
easy. Yeah, that's great. Those guys seem like a lot of fun. Well, all you guys seem like a lot of fun. It'd be definitely be a bucket list. Make it out to Australia and play some games over there.
Cheers! It'd be great. Great to have you around. Anyway, thanks for having me, John.
Thank you,
and thank you all, everyone, for listening. And see, that's how you ended on dark.
I don't have a. I don't have an outro. I just say, bye everybody.
Right. Bye everybody.
and sometimes I say battle driven or chain attack. me and Kyle. Kyle is the other co-host. He's actually the main guy. I'm kind of the behind the scenes editor and sidekick. The podcast is not really my, but it's fun to do. But I'm not. Anyway, bye.